So right now, every MOTU fan in the U.S. has got one thing on their mind: revolution. So wanted to preface before we get started. Today is going to be a little bit different. We're going to be talking about one of the big events going on in the MOTU community, Masters of the Universe community. We want to discuss the new series that has come on to Netflix, Revolution, the sequel series to the Masters of the Universe Revelation that came out about 2 years ago. A lot of American fans are pretty interested in seeing what this next chapter holds, and we're going to talk about some of that today. I do want to say now that this discussion will have some very light spoilers. The purpose of this is to not ruin the show for anybody who hasn't seen it, but maybe also talk about some things that did happen that need to make sure they get noticed, as well as I did a prequel video before the series aired. I recorded myself kind of talking about my predictions for the program. I don't know if I'm going to interface that video because I've never done a video like this before where I'm actually using a camera and a recorder rather than my phone. So it might not work, but the whole idea is I want us to take a look and just kind of, wow, how far off was I? And wow, was it right on? And then if there's any positive feedback that anybody's got, even if it's just kind of, that's a funny idea, or you really like what happened, let's talk about it. There might be some things you think too, or you have some bad thoughts too, but I don't want to get into the bashing. It's not really an interest of mine. I don't think that's what this is. I don't want that to be a platform for this. So let's get started. So one of the first, so the show came out January 25th, and now there were a couple things we knew just from the trailer alone that we knew were going to happen. We knew King Randor was going to die. Me personally, I thought they were going to drag it out because the way it had been teased was, and again, they dropping lots of spoilers to make sure that fans who want to see their heroes, in action tune in because of some of the negative publicity that came out last time around. They had already announced that they were going to be, it was a 5-episode series. The first 3 were going to be largely jam-packed with He-Man. Episode 4 was going to be an Atom, and episode 5 was going to be He-Man. So we knew that for some reason he was not going to be He-Man. Now, it's probably in natural storytelling where you're going to have to come to a point where our heroes, the struggle, so maybe, you can anticipate that would be the natural flow of anything. But me personally, I thought they were going to drag on King Randor's death. I thought that he was going to die in the battle with Scareglow or be fatally wounded, and he'd be on his deathbed. Now, I did not think they'd give him a natural death. I think that's very nice that they gave him. They didn't have it some. It's kind of like sparing all of us our childhood. If we'd seen somebody that depicted in film again, especially somebody as a father figure, we probably would have, we probably all wouldn't have taken it well. And it might have been for everybody's well-being, or it could have just been tasteful storytelling. So I'm actually kind of happy about that. One of the other previews that I was hoping for, we knew from one of the trailers that for the first time in animation, He-Man was going to finally wear his battle armor. For anyone who doesn't know, this is a special armor that we all had as toys in the 80s, where he had a plate across his chest. And basically it was in the original He-Man series, the He-Man had a cross across his chest. But in the toy, there were later ones where he had an H for the H in He-Man across his chest. And this is the first time we ever saw that, and it was with a battle damage feature, much like some of the old toy cars when we were kids, when you would smash the side of it, it would flip over to the next side and it would show a damage. In this case, it would be a strike. And if you were to strike it again, it would go again, and there'd be actually 2 strikes. Now, this is as many as you could do without actually having to roll back the feature so that it goes back to a unbroken face, and then you would strike it again, and it would turn. But this is the first time we've ever seen it animated. Now, me personally, I knew it wasn't going to happen, but I was hoping and hoping and hoping that we would get a new transformation. Whenever they did the 2000X He-Man, whenever they finally got to season 3 and they introduced the Snake Men, notably there's a very small change in the armor that He-Man wears when battling the Snake Men, and for that reason, his transformation changes ever so slightly. It's not a big push, but I mean, you're doing something new. It's great. So I was really hoping that that was going to happen. So we knew, voice acting wise, that there was at least 2 surprises left. One of them was going to be, nobody knew who Will Shatner was going to be. So I would have been wrong. I actually did come up with a couple predictions of who I thought it would be. My number 1 most fun person would have been if they'd actually made it Man-E-Faces. Kind of playing on the fact that Will Shatner is an actor, and back in the Star Trek days, he was known for being a little eccentric or having a very unique acting style that a lot of people like to, rib him for or whatever, just kind of give him a hard time about. But I think it was all in fun, and it could have been really fun to have Will Shatner doing sort of a Clayface type character. Clayface being from the adult series on HBO, Harley Quinn, where he's sort of an over-the-top actor, very dramatic, and I think it would have been really fun to have Will Shatner in that role. Now, that would have been what I would have chose him for. Now, that's not what happened, unfortunately. Another thought was that maybe he might be Too Bad. That we knew in the trailer that Too Bad was going to be in the show finally. We didn't know if he was going to have speaking lines or anything like that. I was hopeful, but unfortunately, he was not voiced by Will Shatner either. I actually thought it would have been really funny having his 2 heads sort of talking to each other, and he'd be both of them. I know it may not be the best depiction, but I thought it would have been kind of fun, kind of old slapstick style, where he would have been, one of them would have been all intelligent, and the other one would have been stupid and brutish, and it just would have been fun to have that exchange, and him playing both halves, kind of over here doing this and over here doing this. I thought that would be really neat. Ultimately, we learned later that he was going to be voiced by, or he was going to play the character of, what was his name? Randor's brother, Keldor. Now, in the 1980s version of this program, which is what this is attempting to kind of follow the story of. That's why it's not spending a lot of time reintroducing characters, kind of like how, in every Spider-Man film, the Spider-Man gets bit again, but we all know the story in general of how he gets his powers. They didn't spend any time doing that because they fell back on the 80s storytelling done by Filmation, and this character had never been introduced. And apparently he ends up voicing him. If it wasn't him, I really thought it might have been Gwildor, a character who was being animated for the first time in this film, but coming from the 1987 real life film, where they basically they wanted to bring Orko into the storytelling. They couldn't do it, so they sort of created a character for the story. And with this, they've actually sort of brought in the storytelling from the real life movie, which is, I don't know, I think they did it in a good way. I knew that they did this already a little bit in Revelation whenever they introduced Pig Boy. Pig Boy was in that program as well. He was a child who had won a contest to appear in the real life film after some sort of contest. And when he did, a lot of people nobody knows this or nobody knew at the time that it was him, because whenever they put him on set, they dressed him up. So he would have had bragging rights, so to speak, for his friends. And he'd be like, hey, that's me in the movie. But he was under so much makeup, you couldn't tell who it was underneath. Now, here, 40 years later, he's got sort of a bragging right because he got to be the very first depiction of a brand new character, which they brought in, which was from the movie, but now they brought Gwildor in, and I like what they did with it. The next thing was, and this is something I don't think anybody else was picking up, there was another veteran voice actor who was going to be returning. I think this is probably one of the most fun parts of this video, because I really think my speculations were just fun. Like, who could it be? In an interview with Dad at Arms, another YouTube personality, he did a interview with, I think, Ted Biaselli, and I apologize if I'm getting that name wrong. But basically, they were talking about what can you tell us, and he knew he mentioned there was going to be one more, and he was skeptical. He said he didn't want to remember, he didn't want to say who the sex was, or like what sex the voice actor was, whether, because it would give away if it was a male or a female. So I kind of ran with that, and here were the people that I basically considered. I sort of took all the names out of different franchises that I could think of that are, one, still working, would probably be interested, ones that fans would really want to see, and try to whittle down who it might be. So two of my immediate out the doors were that we knew that they approached Meg Foster whenever they, because she was an announced voice actor. She is from the real life He-Man movie, but she's voicing Motherboard. So we knew that from this that they were willing to approach the real life actors to bring them into the storytelling. Of course, at the San Diego Comic-Con 40th anniversary of He-Man, Dolph Lundgren was there. So I kind of thought that was going to happen. I thought maybe they offered it to him, and he might have. Now, I don't know if this would have been not for him. I mean, but then he went, but still, he went to the Comic-Con. He showed up for the fans, and they approached him about his likeness for the toy that they produced of him. They made a Masterverse version of his likeness. They've already had Mattel has been in a room with him again since then, and this has taken a couple of years to get out, so there's a good chance that it could have been him. He was a thought that I had. And then Frank Langella, a lot of people love him in his depiction of Skeletor. Now, to be honest, I've not watched the real-life film in 40 years. Truthfully, I am willing to give it another go. I remember not liking it. I want to see, I've listened to some of the production notes that other YouTube personalities have put out discussing about what they were told and how things went down. And I think at the end, while it did not do as well as everyone had hoped, the film in large was a labor of love for everybody involved. And with that, I want to go back and see if I can kind of pick up on some of that passion and some of that energy coming over through the film. And as a He-Man fan, I would love to see something like that. But I was thinking, did they approach Frank Langella, the character who played Skeletor in that film? I've heard his performance was magnificent, that people just, they think he really kind of 110%ed it. I wanted to see if maybe it was him, and I couldn't figure it. Now, the fact that they wouldn't announce what sex it was, I thought that was a big tip-off. Okay, so one of them I considered was if it might be movie Teela. In the movie, the character Teela is played by actress Chelsea Field. I wondered if maybe they were, because they've already since having Meg Foster approached, and they've actually released a Evil Lynn character in her likeness. I figured now we have two bad guy characters, we got to have two good guy characters, right? So they're going to approach one of the others from the film, and my thoughts would be it has Teela and it has Man-at-Arms. Teela being the counterpart, or I would suggest, to Evil Lynn, and them loving to do variants of Teela, it's most likely going to be Teela, but who else could it be? And again, I'm thinking female, okay? So could it have been Christina Pickles? She was the actress who played the sorceress for the film. Now, again, I don't know her library of work, but when I looked them up, each of these people were recently working or still involved in the entertainment industry, so it's not impossible that they could have been approached. Now, before I move away from the real-life films, one other person to talk about is Courtney Cox. Now, I thought for certain... Well, no. I know that she is a strong possibility because I think we all know that she is she's very out there. She's working. I just don't know if I felt that this was going to be her cup of tea. I feel like when she did the Friends series years ago, she sort of hit the big time. Not that Dolph Lundgren never did, of course, and he was, but I didn't. Again, my only relationship being her character in the real life film. She plays the Earthling character that, introduces He-Man to our ways and such. But I don't remember being particularly struck by her. Maybe she would have come back. I thought it was a possibility. I didn't know where it was going to go. I put her on my list, but I didn't think it was going to be her. So I've gone down the entire movie list of who I thought it might be. Let's go into the other realms. Now, in the 2000X He-Man series, there were two people that really jumped out at me. First off, and this is one of those cool little facts that I like. So if you've ever seen Masters of the Universe, New Adventures of He-Man, you'll know that the voice actor changed from John Irwin to the new voice actor. And I'm sorry, I don't have his name prepared for this video. But he was the Man-at-Arms in the 2000X series. So he, did the voices for He-Man in like 86. And then when they did the next series in 2002, 2003, he came back to be Man-at-Arms. And Man-at-Arms I thought was awesome. I thought his voice casting was almost as good as Alan Oppenheimer, the original Man-at-Arms from the Filmation series. I just thought he was awesome. I thought he was great. Really just great. And I can't give him enough praise. I need to get a thesaurus. He's just awesome. But also from that series, who else might have? I heard that Skeletor, the voice of Skeletor, had actually done some voice work with another YouTube personality where they were doing dubs of mini comics, where he had actually, I guess, been in contact with the person who was voicing Skeletor for those that was trying to give him some coaching as far as how to do the Skeletor voice or maybe the laugh. And that means that he still sort of wants to be involved in it. He'd have done it. You know what I mean? If they'd approached him, he'd have done it, I think. But not him. He was not the one I thought. For whatever reason, I didn't think him. I actually wondered if they might approach the He-Man from that show, from 2006 He-Man. Now, I know him as Leonardo from the original Ninja Turtles, and then the original, I want to say it was a Streamline Videos dub of Akira. I'm not sure if it was Streamline, but it's the one that was done before it was done by Johnny Bosch. He was the second person to voice that. When I was a kid in the 90s, he was the first one to dub it when it was airing on, like, Sci-Fi Channel and such. All right. Now, moving along. Now, this is where my money was, okay? My biggest money was they didn't want to mention sex, so it has to be a girl, okay? I was certain of it. It was going to be a female actor. It was going to be... Now, Melanie Britt, she is the voice actress who voiced She-Ra back in, the 80s. She, I think it was 90, they say it's 93 episodes that she did, plus the Christmas special. She has been going to Comic-Cons with Alan Oppenheimer for years. I thought she would be a very strong contender. But she was actually not my pick. And part of that is because I know what they're doing with the storytelling. They're saying that they're not going to have She-Ra be in the next story, that she is not going to be like, everybody's like, is she going to be in this one? And I'm with them. I want to know if it's going to be her too, but no, it wasn't her. My thought was actually, and this was probably something nobody thought of, which I'm hoping, that it might have actually been Erica Schweimer, and I'm trying to say her name properly. So fans of He-Man know that Lou Schweimer passed away a couple years ago. The same way that they had approached all these veterans, his daughter, I believe, or someone with the same last name, I believe it's his daughter, Erica Schweimer, was the voice of several characters on the She-Ra program. She voiced Frosta. I know she was the voice of Lookie, and she did several other voices for Filmation Animation back when they were doing, back when they were working. So she was my dark horse. She's the one I thought. They didn't want to say it's a female because, one, that again, leads into the She-Ra thing. And after this, I don't even know that anybody's even talking about it. I haven't seen it anywhere. And when I try to look, I see some talking about the story, but I don't think anybody noticed who the voice actor was, but me, of course. And I noticed it when it was airing, and maybe there's others, but I don't hear anybody saying this is so awesome. The same way that Alan Oppenheimer came back to voice Skeletor, was the original voice of Skeletor, Cringer, Battle Cat, as well as a handful of regular characters on the program, as well as not the one-offs, the flavor of the week. They brought him back and they had him do the voice of Mossman in season 1. Okay, now I don't know if that had been my choice, but he's there, man. He's still with it. So who did they bring back that they weren't talking about? 2000X He-Man. His name is Cam Clark. Or let me make sure I say this properly. How do I say this right? Yeah, Cam Clark. Leonardo from the 80s Ninja Turtles. He came back to do it. Now, I'm not going to tell you who he plays because I don't want to ruin who he was on the show. All I got to say, seeing him freaking rocked. Okay, that's it. It's just I have a strong love for people coming back and remembering where they came from, not being so big that they can't come back and do, forgive me, the minors, because I know a lot of voice actors don't get as much accolades as, on-screen actors. They've got, 100 things going for them. Obviously, it's much more difficult, much more pressure, but I do think there is a talent to voice acting, and there are greats, and even when you become great as a voice actor, I love when you still remember where you came from. You still come back to the people who helped make, the fans that made you who you were. It could just be I'm going to be at the next Comic-Con convention. I want to make sure there's a good turnout. I don't like to think about it like that. I think this guy did it because he wants to be part of the program. He wants to be there with us. He's enjoying it with us. Further speculation. So, and again, I'm looking at my notes from what I thought was going to happen. Me personally, I don't think Netflix is going to greenlight 5 episodes. So I won't ruin the ending for the program. And by the way, with my Erica Schweimer reference, I still say I don't understand what the She-Ra stuff is. If they're saying they can't do it, I'm gonna stomp twice and say I don't believe it. So if that's what they want to keep telling us, that's fine. I just don't look me in the eye when you do it, because I still don't believe you. I think that I'm being lied to, and I really thought that they were going to try to bring it all home. And the big question here is, so in my mind, I can't believe Netflix greenlit just 5 episodes. Okay, each of the episodes, while they had no real intro or ending, well, I guess there's a lot of credits for the the dubbing work, as well as Netflix tends to put the dub credits for all the international versions on the same, I don't know what you would call ending credits. So those ending credits run really long. Anybody who's fallen asleep in front of them knows, or waited to see something and said, "Don't go to the next episode. Let me watch this little tail end." Know that there's about almost 5 minutes of additional credits that continue after the end of the program. And I often like to look at the credits because I actually like to know who my actors were, who was in it. At the end of a lot of I want to say Chuck Lorne productions, he puts a note to the some sort of studio note about what might have been going on that week or something. It's interesting to read if you actually stop and pause it for a minute, and usually it'll be on the screen for a fraction of a second, and then it's gone. So just something to look at. But I absolutely figured there was no way that they were going to animate just 5 episodes, that it was going to be that they're going to have another 5 in their back pocket, the same way that they dropped part 1 and part 2 of Revelation. Okay, that maybe Revolution was going to be just 5 episodes, but whatever comes next, that it was going to be right around the corner. I want to say the original Revelation, it dropped in like July 26th, and these dates might be a little off, but July 26th, and then like November 23rd, or vice versa, or something like that. And they were 4 months apart. I can't imagine them doing that, especially when I think the Revelation series or Revolution was supposed to come out back in 2023, but didn't air until January of 24. So I'm thinking this has got to happen, right? Well, so it didn't exactly come off like that, or at least that's, right now there's been no news about a third season. Now it's been said in the media that they are ready to do another series. They've got more series, more story that they want to tell, at least a 3-arc storyline: Revelation, Revolution, and that's actually going to be my third prediction. And again, I'm going to stubbornly stomp in the ground, stomp my foot and say I don't buy it. I believe it's going to go Revelation, Revolution, Rebellion. That's just me. Now, I've liked very much what they did with the series. If you haven't seen it, the only complaint, if I have any complaint about it, is they actually isn't enough talking. I mentioned I like the voice actors. I like to hear what they've got to say. I want to hear them play their part. I want a little bit of story, a little bit of character development to be fleshed out. There wasn't as much of that in this time, and I understand why. I mean, we all know why. Anybody who was a real fan waiting for this knows exactly why, because they had to just make it happen. They had to tell the story. And even if we would have had 2 more minutes of dialogue in each episode, I would have felt completely satisfied. And the story moves. My wife relatively enjoyed it. She's not a big He-Man fan. She watches, of course, for me, and she said it wasn't bad. It just, she's not going to, go out and start pretending to hold a sword and start calling down the power or anything like that. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm actually going to be releasing several similar videos in the near future where I talk about some other things that are going on, so please stay tuned and keep an eye out for that. We will be trying to return to our regular format in the near future. All of our other promotions are still ongoing. Before we took a little hiatus, we were trying to promote to get to 100 subscribers. If we reached 100, we would do a stop motion animation. That's still something we want to do. We are taking both, we would like to get your feedback. If there's a particular person you'd like us to either open or to be in that stop motion, we'd like to know about it. Tell us who you want, and we'll be sure to consider it strongly whenever we get to that point. Truthfully, we may just do it anyway just because it'd be fun. Why not? I guess that's everything, and be on the lookout for the next one. I guess I'll talk to you next time.